Is it?
Today,
Are you able to see me properly?
yes, please. Now we are live, please. Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Caru News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News गांव से, संवाद सरोकार न्यूज, भारत पोस्ट न्यूज, ज्ञान and organ donation India Foundation. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic, and today's topic is not only current but very, very relevant. And the topic is ancient education versus modern education. But before I will go on our main topic, I would like to inform you that today the world is observing World Down Syndrome Day. World Down Syndrome Day, WDSD, is observed on 21st March as a global awareness day by the United Nations since 2012. The date for WDSD being the 21st day of the third month was selected to signify the uniqueness of the triplication trisomy of the 21st chromosome, which causes Down syndrome. Today, world is also celebrating World Poetry Day. World Poetry Day is celebrated on 21st March and was declared by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, in 1999, with the aim of supporting linguistic diversity through poetic expression and increasing the opportunity for endangered languages to be heard. Its purpose is to promote the reading, writing, publishing, and teaching of poetry throughout the world, and as the original UNESCO declaration says, to give fresh recognition and impetus to national, regional, and international poetry movements. Today, the world is also celebrating the International Day of Forests. The International Day of Forest was established on the 21st day of March by resolution of the United Nations General Assembly on November 28, 2012. Each year, various events celebrate and raise awareness of the importance of all types of forests and trees outside forests for the benefit of current and future generations. Now, coming to our main topic, ancient education versus modern education. Education in the Indian subcontinent began with teaching of traditional elements such as Indian religion, Indian mathematics, Indian logic at early Hindu and Buddhist centers of learning such as ancient Takshila in modern days in Pakistan and Nalanda in India. Islamic education became ingrained with the establishment of Islamic empires in the Indian subcontinent in the Middle Ages, while the coming of the European later brought Western education to colonial India. Several Western-style universities were established during the period of British rule in the 19th century. A series of measures continuing throughout the early half of the 20th century ultimately laid the foundation of the educational system of the India. Modern education teaches about the skills required today, that is the skills of science and technology, science of medical science, etc. In addition to listening, the modern education includes writing, visualizing, imaging, and thinking skills. This type of education also includes written tests to examine if the students are learning properly or not. This is done in a very formal way. The methodology used for teaching is very interactive. Modern education is just an evolution of the traditional education which was imparted to the students a few years back. Traditional and modern education are both related to each other and different from each other also. In the early history of our country, there was a time where there were no schools. The children acquired the education of knowledge from their ancestors. At that time, this knowledge focused only on the skills required for survival. The people who lived in jungles got the education from their ancestors, who taught them how to hunt animals for their food, how to use animal skins for different purposes, how to make tools. They were taught about their rituals or the customs they followed. They were taught about the religions they followed. They taught them the stories of their gods and kings from which they could learn good morals. The kings used to send their sons to schools which were called gurukuls in India. In these gurukuls, they were taught how to use different weapons, how to protect themselves, and how to attack their enemies. They were also taught the basic principles of ruling an empire. These types of schools were not meant for the local population. It could only be accessed by the royal families. The rest of the children in the empire learned the skills which their parents possessed. The scenario of education, which now is totally different from the scenario which was a few years back. At that time, modern education was not considered good, and today traditional education is not considered enough. As the needs of the people are changing, the education system also has to change. And this change should be accepted by the people. Earlier, the people used to teach their children how to fulfill their needs. This was the basic aim behind education. And the aim now is still the same. The only thing which has changed is the need of the people. With the passing time, the things which were a luxury at that time have formed the basic needs now. As the needs grew, the education had to grow. If the education did not evolve, then it would be difficult to fulfill the needs of today. And to discuss this very, very important, relevant topic, ancient education versus modern education, we have very elite panel with us consisting of educationists, all those who are having lots of knowledge as an educator or as a officer, those who have imparted their knowledge to educate the students to the youth. So I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and he is Mr. 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 𝐍𝐄𝐖𝐒, IRS. Mr. Sharan has been visiting faculty for several prestigious institutions worldwide. He is the former Director General of Customs and Central Excise Government of India. He is of 1975 batch IRS officer. Over the years, he has served the government of India at top positions for various departments such as customs, central excise, service tax, etc. He speaks on ethics, self-management, religion, and various other subjects at institutions of global repute. His lectures are attended by millions of followers globally. Mr. Sharan strongly believes that what we are going to be a few years down the line depends on what or how we think now. A successful person, according to him, is one who has an 85% attitude and 15% skills. So he recommends that we develop the right attitude towards our life, be it work or personal life. Welcome, Mr. 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 Sharan on our show. Mr. Sharan, you were an officer, a very, very senior officer, and afterwards you have, or during that time also, you have started giving the lectures, and now still you are continuing giving the lectures. We would like to know your views about the ancient education versus modern education. Mr. 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 Sharan, IRS, please.
Good morning to everybody, and thank you, Mr. Lal, for the introduction. I may only like to make a small correction. I don't have millions of followers, as was mentioned. I have never bothered to see also how many people are there going to see at my YouTube or whatsoever it is. Never thought in that line. So marketing has not been my business till now. Now, coming to the subject, ancient wisdom versus the modern education. Now, both of them have some unique and excellent points. What is needed today is to find out what is the best out of them and to ensure that we follow it in our educational system. केवल आम पे चर्चा करना और आम को नहीं खाना, यह तो उचित नहीं होगा। इसलिए मैं उन बिंदुओं को लेना चाहूंगा जिनके आधार पर एक अच्छी शिक्षा नीति बनाई जा सकती है और समाज का कल्याण हो सकता है। So I like to touch only a few points. The first myth about education is that Education is to be obtained from the universities, colleges, and the books. Friends, अगर ऐसा होता तो आप याद करिए, बनारस के लहरतारा तालाब की सीढ़ियों पर एक नवजात शिशु को उसके माता पिता छोड़कर चले जाते हैं और एक जुलाहा परिवार आकर उसको पाल पोस कर बड़ा करता है और वह एक भक्ति रस के कवि के रूप में और समाज सुधारक के रूप में संसार के सामने आता है। हम सभी उसके बारे में जानते हैं। वह व्यक्ति कबीर कभी स्कूल नहीं गया, लेकिन कबीर के ऊपर हजारों PhD हो चुके हैं। Friends, lessons can be learned from stones and should be learned even from stones. यह दृष्टिकोण होना चाहिए। बुद्ध ने भी कहा था, बुद्ध से प्रश्न किया गया तो बुद्ध ने अपने कलाम सूत्र में कहा कि किसी चीज को इसलिए मत स्वीकार करो कि अधिक लोग उसको मानते हैं, किसी चीज को इसलिए मत स्वीकार करो कि पुस्तकों में लिखा है, ट्रेडिशन कहता है, युगों युगों से आ रहा है, मेजॉरिटी लोग मानते हैं। और अंत में यह कहा कि किसी चीज को इसलिए भी स्वीकार मत करो कि मैं कहता हूँ। अपनी बुद्धि पर लगाओ, तर्क से समझो और अंततः अगर लगता है इससे सबों का कल्याण होता है तो उसको स्वीकार करो। So the first point is lessons have to be learned even from stones, and the myth is to be broken that wisdom can be acquired only from the books and universities. दूसरा क्या हो गया है आज के दिन? The boys and girls, they are sitting only in concrete rooms in the schools and colleges. एयर कंडीशन कमरा है, स्कूल बसें भी एयर कंडीशन है। और इससे क्या हुआ कि जो नेचर था, अभी जो लाल साहब ने कहा कि पुराने जमाने में जंगल में जाकर गुरु के आश्रम में शिक्षा पाते थे, प्रकृति के पास रहते थे बच्चे। अगर आप बुद्ध को देखिए, बुद्ध राजकुमार थे, लेकिन उनका जन्म राजमहल में नहीं हुआ, उनका जन्म वृक्षों के नीचे हुआ। और 5 वर्ष की उम्र में जब पहली बार उन्होंने समाधि का अनुभव किया तो वह भी एक जामुन के वृक्ष के नीचे था। उन्होंने जिस दिन बोधि प्राप्त की वह बोधगया में पीपल के वृक्ष के नीचे था। और पहली बार जब उन्होंने धम्मचक्र प्रवर्तन सूत्र का प्रतिपादन किया सारनाथ में तो वह भी वृक्षों के नीचे था। और अंत में 80 वर्ष की उम्र में जब उन्होंने शरीर त्यागा कुशीनगर के पास में, तो साल के वृक्षों के नीचे ही त्यागा। तो इस प्रकार प्रकृति से दूर भागकर हम अपने आप को अप्राकृतिक व्यक्ति बनाए जाए। वी आर मेकिंग आवरसेल्व्स अननेचुरल पीपल बिकॉज वी आर गेटिंग अवे फ्रॉम द नेचर। तो इसका नतीजा क्या है? वी आर फाइंडिंग डायरेक्टर जनरल्स ऑफ पुलिस who have been declared as absconders. We find one IPS officer who has cleared the ethics paper in the UPSC and then got selected into the IPS with very high marks. He is caught cheating with Bluetooth from the coaching institute for improving into the IAS. So the question is that there is nothing which can surpass the values which are required to be inculcated in the system, education system. The third point which I would like to make, that the line of demarcation between freedom, स्वच्छंदता, स्वतंत्रता और अनुशासन, इन तीनों के बीच जो लाइन होनी चाहिए उसको पूर्णतः समाप्त कर दिया गया। अभी तक तो हम लोग अमेरिका में सुनते थे कि किसी बच्चे को कुछ कर दिया, पुलिस को बुला लिया, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान में भी हुआ। एक शिक्षिका को इसलिए मार दिया किसी विद्यार्थी ने कि उसने कहा था अपने विद्यार्थी को कि तुम्हारा हिंदी में इंटरेस्ट नहीं लगता है। चेन्नई की बात। दोस्तों, sometimes it is kinder to be cruel. It is kinder to be cruel. थोड़ा भय तो होना ही चाहिए विद्यार्थी के अंदर, और थोड़ा भय अगर नहीं होगा तो वह काम नहीं कर सकेगा। How much is the fear? That we can understand from the example of violin. वीणा के तार को इतना भी मत ढीला करो कि वह टूट ही जाए, लेकिन इतना भी मत कसो कि वो वीणा के तार को इतना मत ढीला करो कि आवाज ही ना निकले, और इतना भी मत कसो कि वह टूट ही जाए। अफ्रीका में मदर जिराफ जब अपने बच्चे को जन्म देती है तो उसके पीछे जाती है, बच्चे के पीछे, और जाकर उसको पैर से किक मारती है। फुटबॉल की तरह बच्चा जाकर दूर गिरता है, उसको जाकर फिर किक मारती है, और इस तरह से वो बच्चे को मारती जाती है जब तक बच्चा खड़ा हो नहीं जाता है, दौड़ना सीख नहीं लग जाता है। Is the mother cruel to the child? Because in India, if we see the buffaloes, cows, they don't kick their children when they are born. No, my dear friends, the mother giraffe is not cruel. She is kind. क्यों? क्योंकि जानती है कि अगर बच्चा जन्म लेने के साथ ही खड़ा होकर दौड़ना नहीं सीखता है तो फिर वहां पे शेर और दूसरे जानवर आकर उसको खा जाएंगे। क्या ऐसा होगा अगर मैं आपके घर आऊं और 2 किलो मिठाई लेकर आऊं और आपका ग्रैंडसन 8 साल का कहता है कि मैं सारी मिठाई खा जाऊंगा? Will you allow him to do? No, it will be not good for him. 103 डिग्री बुखार हो, बच्चा कहे मैं डॉक्टर के यहाँ नहीं जाऊंगा, जबरदस्ती लेके जाते हैं। पतंग तभी उड़ती है जब तक उसकी डोर होती है। तो दोस्तों, स्टूडेंट्स लोगों को और टीचर्स लोगों को भी समझाना होगा कि लक्ष्मण रेखा समझिए, डिसिप्लिन को लाना बहुत जरूरी है, उसके बिना सिस्टम चल नहीं सकता। अगर कोई मान लीजिए आज कोई ड्राइवर कहे कि मैं बस चलाऊंगा क्योंकि आजाद हूँ, हवाई जहाज का पायलट कहे, ट्रेन का ड्राइवर कहे कि मैं जैसा चाहता हूँ चलाता हूँ, या हमारे कोई रिलेशन अगर एम्स में भर्ती है, उनको ऑपरेशन करना है और डॉक्टर कहे कि आज मैं आजाद हूँ, क्या आप वैसे डॉक्टर को लेना चाहेंगे? नहीं दोस्तों, वी मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड द लाइन ऑफ लक्ष्मण रेखा, समझना जरूरी है, और डिसिप्लिन को रखना बहुत ही जरूरी है। एक और चीज जो मैंने देखी है, अगला पॉइंट, the teachers must go to the level of the students. टीचर्स अपने फ्रीक्वेंसी में क्लास में पढ़ाते हैं, बच्चे अपने फ्रीक्वेंसी में समझते हैं। इंग्लैंड में ड्यूरिंग क्रिसमस टाइम देयर यूज्ड टू बी a unique program some years ago. The schools used to invite the topmost scientists of the country, and they were called to address the 12th class students. Now, if the scientist has to make his subject explain to the 12th class students, obviously he can't pull up each child to his level. Obviously, he has to step down to the level of the students. That is what is required. Bharat Sarkar mein, in the Ministry of Finance, in my professional field, I am supposed to be an authority on quality management system. I started it in the Ministry of Finance after the Kilkar Committee report came. जब मैंने उसमें एक्सपर्टाइज हासिल की और मुझे सभी विभाग से बुलाया जाने लगा, निमंत्रण मिला कि आकर इस विषय पर बताइए, तो what did I think? Today also I think that if I can't explain to any subject, आप मुझे GST कहिए, if I can't explain it, because that has been my subject, if I can't explain to a student of 12th class, then I am not a good teacher. A good teacher must go to the level of the students. ये मेरा अगला ऑब्जर्वेशन। एक और जो चीज हो गई है आज, बिकॉज देयर आर न्यूक्लियर फैमिलीज, पहले ज्वाइंट फैमिलीज होती थी तो बच्चों का पर्सनैलिटी का ग्रोथ बहुत सुंदर होता था। न्यूक्लियर फैमिलीज होती हैं, बच्चे अपने आप तक सीमित हैं। हर परिवार में ही समस्या है कि स्क्रीन से कैसे बचाया जाए बच्चों को। दूसरी तरफ देखिए, बूढ़े लोग जो रिटायर्ड लोग हैं, उनके पास समय इतना है कि उनको मालूम नहीं कि क्या करें। पार्क में बैठने के अलावा उनके पास कोई काम है ही नहीं, कंक्रीट कंस्ट्रक्टिव। दिल्ली सरकार ने एक पहल की है, स्टूडेंट लोगों को मेंटर बनवाने, एक मेंटर बनाने के लिए इनवाइट किया है। और हर मेंटर के साथ वो स्टूडेंट हर रोज 10 मिनट के लिए बात करेगा या करेगी और उसको गाइड करेगा। मेरी सोच है कि एक तरफ एक बच्चों का वर्ग है जो भूखा है और दूसरी तरफ रिटायर्ड लोगों का वर्ग है जो कि किसी काम जिसके पास समय ही समय है। इन दोनों का क्यों नहीं मिलन कराया जाए, इस पर क्यों नहीं चर्चा की जाए, इसकी मेथोडोलॉजी कैसे नहीं बनाई जाए, क्यों नहीं बनाई जाए जैसा दिल्ली की सरकार ने जैसे मेंटर बनाने की पहल की। इस तरह से अगर करें तो फिर जो बच्चों के जीवन में जो सूनापन है उसको भरा जा सकता है और जो बड़े बुजुर्ग हैं उनके जीवन में भी कंस्ट्रक्टिव काम होगा, उनकी मेंटल एक्टिविटी बढ़ेगी विच विल बी गुड फॉर देयर वेल बीइंग। अगली बात जो मैंने देखी है, मैं फील करता हूं कि गणित एक ऐसा विषय है जिससे सारी दुनिया के बच्चे डरते हैं, लेकिन मेरे स्कूल में, मैं जब स्कूल में पढ़ता था तो मेरे शिक्षक ने बहुत सारे फॉर्मूलाज बताए। जैसे आपसे पूछूं 721 into 125, इमीडिएटली इसका आंसर 90,125। अगर 107 into 107 कहूं तो इसका उत्तर होगा 11449। 93 into 93 कहूं तो 8649 होगा। ये सारे फॉर्मूलाज हैं, मुझे स्कूल में 7वीं क्लास में मास्टर जी ने पढ़ाया, मैं उसको भूला नहीं। और आज भी जब मेरी बैटरी डाउन होती है, सबों की बैटरी डाउन होती है जैसे मोबाइल की, तो मैं ऐसे काम करता हूं जिसमें आई डोंट एक्सपेक्ट एनी रिटर्न। मैं स्कूल में जाके बच्चों को गणित की शिक्षा देता हूं। और जब भी आप जीवन में जब कभी बैटरी डाउन हो तो कुछ ऐसा करिए जिसमें यू डोंट एक्सपेक्ट एनीथिंग इन रिटर्न, योर बैटरी विल बी चार्ज। तो मैं उनको जाके गणित और गणित के मैनेजमेंट के साथ में लाइफ मैनेजमेंट की बात भी करता हूँ और इस प्रकार उनकी रुचि बढ़ाता हूँ। अफ्रीका में, सिंगापुर में और कई जगह, भूटान में, सभी जगह जाकर के, हिंदुस्तान में तो कई जगह मैंने इस पर शिक्षा दी है। 2 किताबें भी लिख दी, मंत्रास ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स, गणित के मंत्र। तो ये मुझे लगता है कि बच्चों में ये इसके विषय में अगर रुचि जगा दी जाए तो उनकी दूसरे विषयों में रुचि जग जाएगी, क्योंकि गणित ही सबसे डरावना विषय लगता है सारे दुनिया में और इससे उनका इम्प्रूवमेंट बढ़ जाएगा। और अंत में मैं महसूस करता हूं कि सब मिला जुला करके वैल्यूज, सब कुछ, एवरीथिंग शुड कम आउट ऑफ द वैल्यूज, बिकॉज वैल्यूज आर द रूट्स। वैल्यूज आर द रूट्स। आप जब चीनी मिल सेटअप करते हैं तो 2 प्रोडक्ट, बाई प्रोडक्ट निकलते हैं, बागास और मोलासेस। हैव यू हर्ड एनीबॉडी सेटिंग अप ए फैक्ट्री फॉर मोलासेस एंड बागास? नो। अब जितने लोगों, सक्सेसफुल लोगों की जीवनी पढ़ लें, 52 साल की उम्र में पहली बार सफलता मिली अब्राहम लिंकन को, तो 52 साल तक तो आदमी टूट जाएगा। क्यों नहीं टूटा? क्योंकि उसकी जड़ें मजबूत थी, वैल्यूज मजबूत थी। तो हमारा फोकस होना चाहिए शुगर फैक्ट्री सेटअप करने के लिए, अर्थात वैल्यूज को स्ट्रॉन्ग करने के लिए, एंड एवरीथिंग एल्स विल कम एज बाई प्रोडक्ट। जो 3 इडियट्स फिल्म में कहता है, क्या कहता है कि अपने आप को काबिल बनाओ, कामयाबी झक मार करके तुम्हारे पीछे आएगी। तो ये फोकस बिल्कुल बदलना चाहिए, क्योंकि आज जो हो रहा है, द डिग्रीज गिव अस द जॉब, वहीं तक ला करके मार्केट में आगे खड़ा कर देते हैं, लेकिन उसके आगे जो चलता है, जीवन चलता है, उसके बारे में डिग्रीज डोंट टेल यू, एजुकेशन डजंट टेल यू हाउ टू लिव द लाइफ। इसलिए जब आप क्रॉस रोड पर आकर के खड़े हैं तो यू डोंट नो वेदर, जो आपने बचपन से पढ़ा है कि ऑनेस्टी इज द बेस्ट पॉलिसी, खरगोश और कछुए की कहानी सही है कि नहीं। और अगर चौराहे पर आकर किसी बच्चे ने गलत डिसीजन ले लिया तो फिर द लाइफ डजंट गिव अस सेकंड चांस। The game of life is not to be played, is the God or ईश्वर जो भी है, he doesn't allow us to play second time. And once we go in the highways, there are no U-turns. इसलिए सबसे जरूरी है कि पहले बता दें। और कौन बताएगा? हम लोग बताएंगे, जिसने देखा है। मैं कैलाश मानसरोवर गया हूँ, लोगों से पूछता रहा कि कैसे जाते हैं, सब बताते हैं।
please be brief.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we have to focus on the values and focus on the areas which are needed. And I think if we focus on that, definitely the results will come. चाइना में एक बांस का पेड़ होता है, उसको आज बीज बोइएगा तो 6 साल तक जमीन से नहीं आता, लेकिन छठे साल आता है तो एक बार 150 फीट आता है, 90 फीट आता है। क्या मरा हुआ था? नहीं, मरा हुआ नहीं था। दोस्तों, आज के दिन बीज बोइए, हो सकता है कि आने वाले भविष्य में ऐसे फल निकलेंगे जिससे समाज सुंदर होगा, सबों का कल्याण होगा। यही मेरी कामना है, यही मेरी चाह है, एंड दिस इज माय विश। थैंक यू वेरी मच once again for inviting me and listening to me patiently. God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharan, for giving your views. And what Mr. Sharan says, that earlier, the ancient time, the education was in the open area. There, the children used to study, while nowadays it's a air-conditioned concrete rooms. So the buses are also air-conditioned. So the development of child is not that much what it used to be. Secondly, emphasized on the values, that the values of the things are very much important. If the values are not there, then how the child is going to succeed in his life or her life? Because by getting the degrees is not the ultimate aim, it is how you are going to succeed in your life. So according to Mr. Saran, lots of things has to be done, and we have to do it immediately. If we will do it without waiting for the fruit right now, it will give fruits, but it will take time. Thank you very much, Mr. Saran, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he's Professor Dr. R.K. Arya. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya is the Professor of International Economics at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad. He is triple postgraduate in Statistics, Econometrics, Finance, double PhD in Finance and Economics from Delhi University. He worked in applied economics and social welfare, Government of India. He contributed hundreds of articles in leading economic newspapers. He is guiding PhD scholars on various applied topics. He possesses thorough knowledge of social welfare, development, public policies, education, and employment. He attended many conferences, workshops, and presented papers. Presently, he is teaching MBA students. He has good understanding of international economics. He is having practical experience in education planning in Planning Commission. Welcome, Professor Dr. R.K. Arya on our show. Professor Arya, you have heard what Mr. Saran has mentioned. Two things mainly about the values, what we were having at the ancient time in the ancient education, which is lacking now. And he has given all his points. Now, you being associated with the Planning Commission, you are also worked with the Social Welfare Government of India, and you have seen how the education has evolved from the ancient time till now. We would like to know from you your views on ancient education versus modern education. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya, please. Please unmute. No, you are unmuted. Your voice is not coming, Professor Arya. Professor Arya, we can't hear you. No. I think some problem with your device. You just increase the volume of the device. Some problem is going on. Okay, so what I will do, I will move to the next panelist guest. Till the time you will rectify the defect. No, we can't hear you, Professor Arya. You just see to it, either log out and then log in through other device or through this device, but with a proper, because there is no voice is coming. I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Dr. Sapna Agrawal. Dr. Sapna Agrawal is the Director, Academics, Edge Academy, Kota. She is the founder of iBig Wonder. She is an astute academician, dynamic and socially active with qualitative experience of more than 22 years at higher echelon for knowledge management, children education, training and development, child psychology, science and its spiritual understanding. Her armed forces background with core competency in leadership skills and high values enable her to capitalize and set up schools. Her right dissemination of education and quality can position and help all stakeholders in a school. She believes that education reforms and innovative methodology can create wonders. She has conducted more than 4,500 training sessions and conferences, talks with principals and directors, chairpersons of schools for leaders in education. She has conducted talk session with children and connected with more than 30,000 children till now. Her teachers training session have crossed more than 950 workshops till now. She has been talking on topics including right parenting, public speaking and presentation skills, leadership, team building, problem solving, decision making, positive mental attitude, interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence and lateral thinking, needs of 21st century classrooms and teachers, ed tech is here to stay, etc. She is a powerful motivator, having won the zone and national awards of most outstanding speaker in Junior Chambers International India. She uses innovative training techniques and neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, to unlock the ideas and invoking participants' own ability to solve their problems and relate real-life situations. She contributes articles in Times of India. She has been invited in countries like Oman, Dubai, Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and Nepal to deliver academic trainings. She presented papers and was a speaker at IIT Delhi, Edu Excellence 6th International Conference. She also presented paper at NCRT on experiencing science can create happiness in classrooms. She earned the title of iconic trainer in JC. Welcome, Dr. Sapna Agarwal on our show. Dr. Agarwal, you have heard what Mr. Saran has mentioned. Now, you being yourself someone who is motivating the pupil, you are training, you are giving your thoughts and giving your guidance to the principals, academicians, the teachers, etc., giving them the training also. You are also observing the conditions of the modern education, as you are someone who is creating or who is trying to develop the new techniques of the education. Now, we would like to know from you your views on ancient education versus modern education. Dr. Sapna Agarwal, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Goel. It's a pleasure to be here on this panel. And yes, definitely after listening to Mr. Hrishikesh Sharan, there was a lot of insight which was coming to me. Of course, I'm also excited to listen to the rest of the panelists. So, let me begin like that it is satirically painful that most of the eminent jewels in the nation, I mean, we had to ignore or go against the education system to maybe grow or reach to the peaks or the mountains, wherever it is. So India, I mean, when we talk about ancient education and when we talk about modern education, I'll also break it down into ancient education, traditional education, and now modern education with the technological tools. So now what is happening is that it's very, very notable that we sort of have contaminated the society after the medieval and colonial era, because there were certain elements probably we were holding back our growth. When I talk about ancient education, instantly what comes to our mind is the Gurukul Padhyati or the Gurukul education, right? And now the ancient education I use the word is, different in ideas, approaches, mechanism. And now what we are using, what we call modern education, I personally feel it is sort of a distorted version. Many of us know it was around 18. Okay, I'll give the dates a little later about the Macaulay's education. So, there is something called as ethical education. When I talk about the Gurukula system, what kind of values and ethics, as the previous speaker was also mentioning, the student had to go, when we call Gurukul education system, sometimes we feel it was the Brahminical system, right? Or the domestic system of education. Well, this domestic system of education is being followed by the world altogether. The student had to undergo a very rigid physical, mental, and moral discipline. The idea was to convert a student into a complete human being. Why? The training used to happen to train him or her efficiently to shoulder the responsibilities of society. The pictures which we have seen or the documentaries which we have seen show only the male fraternity going to the Gurukulas. Well, it is wrong. the females also used to study equally, and they were also trained to own the shoulder and to shoulder responsibilities of the society. Right. When we talk about Gurukula system, Buddhist education also has to be thought upon, because it also concentrates and works upon the spiritual training. Right. Similarly, the monastic system of education. Now, there are a lot of things which, when we talk about the Vedic system, the Gurukula system, the formal education system, when it was happening, and that was to inculcate the discipline and ethics toward the life, which is the basic ingredient in any student's life. But without the values, without the ethics, how can somebody move ahead? It is not about reading the textual matters in the books and parroting it, believing that this is a skill in the child's life. I have been in this field of education right from being a teacher, of course, as a parent also, right, and leading the schools as in the administrative position of being a school leader. One common question which I hear from parents is, what is the progress of my child? And the moment the word progress comes, the only thing which is considered is the marks gained in the academic or in the subjects, literary subjects, right? So it's very, very important for us to understand. When I compare today's education system, and I'll also be talking about the national policy of education, which I have been talking and I've been very vocal about. In Gurukul system, there were certain subjects, common subjects, which were taught to all, and that were arithmetic, military science, law, performing arts, ethics, art and architecture. And why they were taught? The child becomes, I'm just going to say sabal, right? The child can earn a livelihood. Men and the girls needed to know an art form, right? Why? Because later on, in case they are not able to get a job or get settled somewhere, they are able to do something of their own. When we talk about the ancient education, Indian education system, it is clearly mentioned there were more than 64 art forms, including dance, music, jewel making, sculpture, agriculture, medical sciences, a whole lot of vocational education and vocational training, right? In particularly where the trainees were required, they used to work under a master to gain expertise. So the guru was like a master. They were taught without any cost. The only thing, and even the staying, they used to go to Gurukulas, Guru ka home, Guru ka ghar. Even the food and boarding were taken care by the master. I'm not saying that commercialization on earning money is bad. It's not at all bad, because I personally also believe that wherever there is, the word business has a lot of productivity. So, we are stuck in between when we talk about the modern education. We neither are into a business kind of a thing. We call that, it's run by a society. We cannot earn money, but everybody has earned money. So that we have certain prejudice outlooks as far as the things are there. Now, I should also talk about the traditional education a little bit before I move ahead. So, traditional education is basically the customary education or the conventional education. And the main motive of the traditional education is also to pass the values, manners, skills, and social practices to the next generation. Why? Because it is important for their survival. In traditional education, the student learns about the customs, the student learns about the tradition of the society where they live. A lot of people say that why a doctor's son becomes doctor, why lohar ka beta lohar, why? Because these skills, they were imparted, and generation to generation, they were moving ahead. It was not limited to any caste, color or creed, nothing like that. It was a skill which was being imparted, and generation to generation, these skills were becoming stronger into it. In traditional education also, the students, they used to simply sit down and listen to the teacher, and they used to recite the lesson. I personally what I've learned is, traditional education never included a lot of written tests. There were a lot of formal tests, there were a lot of oral tests, there were different ways. And traditionally, I talk about, I should bring in here ancient education. Ancient education had great use of science and technology. You see the various astras and shastras being taught to the children, right? That was again in military science. While in traditional education, what started happening? It was the focus started coming gradually towards the assessments, evaluations, subjects, and gradually the system started setting in knowledge about customs, traditions, and even religions. So, religion or dharma, which was a very important thing, which makes a person very strong. Even Chanakya says that, which I'll quote a little later. But these things, they started creating a little bit of misunderstanding because they were misinterpreted. When I talk about modern education, it is very different from even traditional education. Now, this is the education which is being taught in schools today, right? And it teaches about the skills required, that is skills of science and technology, the science of medical science, in additional to
One moment, please.
yeah, in additional to listening, we request the other participants to kindly mute.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine.
Please,
Right. So now these things are done in a particular formal way. Yeah, even the modern education has a formal way of doing it. It is believed that the methodology is very interactive, but when we say the methodology is very interactive, it has to become more interactive. A common question asked in classrooms is, has everybody understood? And the probable answer which is taken is yes. So somebody who says no, is given a, we do have problem areas, we do have diagnostic approaches, but how many times are we practicing? So this question of ancient education versus modern education is a very, very important one. In ancient education, the students were also taught to become warriors, right? They used to not only protect themselves and fight against the enemies and attack on enemies, but they also used to protect the entire nation. So, nation building was something which was very important for every single learner. So, it is very important to understand and differentiate those things. When we talk about the various universities we had, you mentioned Takshashala in the beginning, right? There are many other universities who have been regularly contributing into this system of teaching, learning, growing. Some of the ancient universities I would like to name is like Vallabhi, Vikramshila, Jagaddala. All these universities, they are still, beyond excellence than what modern education is providing to the children. We should also bring in the talk about the exorbitant fees. I use the word exorbitant. Well, the fees can be still exorbitant. The fees is not the criteria. The criteria is every single learner of the nation being educated to a certain level? Now is the time I should talk about the national policy of education. So after years of struggle, it was in the year 2020, this national policy of education was introduced. Now it shows, for me, it's a fresh air. And I feel it's actually like music to the ears. Now is the time the implementation has begun. And we believe that a lot of things are going to get implemented in years to come. What are those things? It talks about experiential learning. It talks about inclusivity. Yeah, just a second. Yeah, it talks about inclusivity. It also talks about that, how the learners are going to apply whatever they are learning in their real life situations. National policy of education holds teacher as the pivot point. There were a lot of talks and debates where it was felt that, with the incoming of edtech or hybrid model or the technology in the education, the teacher may not have that role to play. Well, it's very important for all of us to believe and understand and stick onto it that teacher plays a pivotal role. The role of that human being actually enhances the entire facet of education, entire delivery of the skills which is going to happen. So it makes it a proper system of education. There is so much of transparency which is going to come. So the first milestone in national policy of education is 2025, and then it is 2030. It talks about, teach the multilingualism, because traditional education, or not the traditional, the ancient education was disseminated in Sanskrit. And now we talk in, the education is taught in English or Hindi or regional languages. And there was so much of hullabaloo when the multilingualism came that, we are trying to bring the Sanskrit knowledge systems. Well, Sanskrit knowledge system is a very, very powerful knowledge system. And once it sets into the modern education system, I think we are already moving ahead in the globally. We are going to take everything onto the peak once it is going to set. But multilingualism says, teach the child in the language which the child understands. माने बच्चे को जो भाषा समझ में आए उसको उसमें पढ़ाइए. The bhasha, the language should not be a barrier. What happens in the rut of teaching in English, we forget that the child is coming from a certain background where the mother tongue is spoken, where the mother tongue is heard most, and the child gets challenged by even understanding a lot of things. You mentioned about I Big Wonder. Well, I Big Wonder, yes, of course, it's a concept, and I talk about it on my YouTube. The name is I Big Wonder Dori, and I just try to contribute in my own way, helping the educators, creating the right mindset, protecting their own rights, telling them about their own rights, establishing them right themselves. They have, every single teacher has to constantly upgrade themselves for the simple reason, in case after acquiring that degree, which makes them a professional teacher, if the teachers stop upskilling, stop upgrading themselves, how are they going to be like working shoulder to shoulder with the modern generation children? To mold the children, we have to also understand what they understand. To mold the children, we have to be as comfortable with the technology as they are. To mold the children, to formulate the ideas, it is important to teach the children, but it is also important for us as educators to understand the language, the mindset, the thought processes, the methodologies which the children feel they are very comfortable with. Now, it's very important for me. Yeah, I keep the
Please
time in mind. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I always open the timer with the moment I start speaking. So
Yeah,
10 to
okay.
12 minutes. So that is.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Ji. So, we have always, Chanakya had already said that once, and I'm just quoting, unquoting, that education beats the beauty and the youth. Now, when this person says that, education beats the beauty and youth, is, the modern generation children, they're very happy showcasing themselves. Social media is all full of content. They keep creating content, everything. They're more curious about their how they look, the youthfulness, the energy. Well, that's a very good sign. But, education is what brings in everything from inside out, and we can just be ahead from anybody once we are educated. And do not mean to say once we are literate. Literacy is one area. So modern education is highlighting as of now on a lot of literacy, while the Gurukul system or the ancient education system was talking about a lot of knowledge building, decision making. It was so important for a child to learn decision making, problem solving, the real life areas, when they are going to work. So with this, I'll go on talking, and I am sure I'll get more opportunity to answer my questions when you ask. Yeah. Okay. So with this, I would like to rest my voice for some time and listen to the other panelists.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Sapna Agrawal, for giving your views. And what Dr. Sapna Agrawal mentioned, that the ancient time, the education was to teach ethics, moral science, military science, etc. But the modern time, and she's advocating very enthusiastically about the NEP, the National Education Policy 2020, although whether the implementation is going to be there or not, that we have to see. But what she says, that if it is implemented, it is going to create more and more avenues, because it is a multilinguistic, and especially for the child who can think and who can speak the mother language, can be taught in that language. Thank you very much, Dr. Sapna Agrawal, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, Professor Arya. Are you there? Please switch on your video. We can't.
Yes.
We can't see you.
Okay?
No, your video is not on. Please switch on your video.
One minute.
No, Professor Arya, we can't see you.
1 minute. Is it okay now?
No, it's not okay. We can't see you. Until we will not see you. Yes, now we can see you.
Okay.
Yes, Professor Arya. So please, Professor Arya, you have heard what Mr. Sharan as well as what Dr. Sapna Agrawal has mentioned. Now we would like to know your views on ancient education versus modern education. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya, please.
Indeed, these two panelists have given the enlightened views about...
Professor Arya, just adjust yourself, because your face is going up. Because you have changed your device during the program, so that's why. Yes, now no, see to it that your face should not cut. It's a live telecast.
Is it okay now?
No, it's not okay. Now it is okay. Yes, let it be stable on the table. No, we can't see your face, Dr. Arya. You just see your face. Yeah, yes, now it is okay. Yes, please.
What I have read, I have understood from them is that they have tried to brought a sharp distinction between the ancient education and also what exactly the modern education is. But there is still a basic difference, that why we had to embrace the modern education and had to give up the ancient education. It is the journey from ancient education about 25 years, 500 years ago till now. We had seen many ups and downs. The ancient education rested on Vedas, Brahmanas, Upanishad, and Dharma Shastra. And the quality of education was expected to enrich the culture, character, and personality development, cultivation of noble ideas, with a view to develop mental, physical, and personality of the student to become, to be, for them to future ready and survive. The basic premise was that one, everyone should understand, that is, there is an ultimate God who has created a society, who has created the universe, and therefore the nature and the human balance was expected to be there. All these things were expected to be taken into account, so that the three basic things should be remembered: Shravan and Manan, and then Nidyasan. That is, you listen to the things and contemplate it, but live with the truth. That is Nidyasan, that you need to live with the truth. Don't speak truth, live with the truth every moment. That was important at that point in time. And the education those days was entirely private, and the royal families, kings, and the few big people used to sponsor the education in the universities, but the local education could be taken when you had gone for, that is what it is called, Vidyaram and the Upanayan Sanskar. Once it is done, that the Vaishya, Kshatriya, and others can go to Brahman at the age of 8, and then at the age of 10, and then at the age of 12. These three castes can go and study there in Gurukuls, or they will have to live in the forest, because they were they were expected to respect the nature, so that they recognize what the forest is, and the dignity of labor was also there. So therefore, while the students stayed with the teachers there in forest areas, in gurukuls, so they tended the animals of their own. They groomed the that is floors also. So everything which was considered to be sublet was expected to be done by the students, so that there should be a self-realization among them, and they should live the truthful life and the noble life. At the same time, for survival, they were expected to learn the basic art and craft, and the minimum which is required, because the science and technology those days was not so advanced. So this process continued, and the society was considered to be pure. You must have seen that there, in case of that is the Kaurav and Pandavas, they were taught by the Dronacharya. But 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 belonging to the Dalit community could not be given the education, but still he learned while remaining behind the tree, and what the Dronacharya had taught. So similarly, these Rama and Lakshmana were sent to Guru Vishwamitra, and they studied for long many years. Similarly, that is the Lord Krishna went to Sandipan Rishi in Ujjain to study what was required based on the Vedas, Brahmanas, Upanishad, and Dharma Shastra. This is the reason that the epics will reflect that the Sanskrit was the ultimate language. So the people were attached to the Sanskrit, and Sanskrit used to be the pure language those days. So therefore, the unity and everything, cooperation was possible when you are interconnected with each other. You are not hypocrite. You are not telling lie, earning for yourself. You have been taught, but the purpose of teaching was that you should lead the noble life, that is the truthful life, and therefore it was expected that you will earn also in pious manner, that there will be no corruption, there will be no dishonesty. In 18th century, in the 8th century AD, that India was invaded by the Mohammedan, that is the Mughals, and the Muhammad Ghazwani had plundered the wealth of the country. And during Mughal empires, that lot of libraries and universities were devastated and demolished. So then for few years, for about 500 years, this continued, that how the education was distorted. Now the education was based on basically on Quran and the Arab system of education. The Quran system was religious in nature and the Arab system was, that is, secular in nature. All these systems of educations were included there in the Arab system. Language continued to be the same, Arabic and the Persian, so that how the education continued to prevail. In 1830, you know, Lord Macaulay, when he was here in India, he wanted that the Christianity should be the ultimate objective of India, to spread the Christianity and overthrowing the Islam. He succeeded to some extent. He imposed English as a medium of instruction, and this continued for a long time, even after independence, that this education, that is the Montessori for the lower education, and still up is the kindergarten, and then we have got primary, middle, secondary. With the passage of time and that is the explosion of population, the system of education has become very commercial and it is of selfish nature. Anyone who can pay for education can get the education, and anyone can pay for the superior education, he will get the superior job and he can earn lot of wealth also. In this particular system, in Gurukul system, basically, that is, the Dalits were not allowed and the women were also not allowed. This was the drawback there, but here we will have the women and the men both are being educated together. But the quality of education differs from person to person, how much the government is supporting and how much the private is supporting. This is the modern education, that is, the education is divided into two components, 70 to 30 ratio. Government contributes 70 and the private contributes 30. The medium of instruction still continues to be the English, because in medical sciences and the engineering sciences, that the translation of the textbook has not been done so far. So whether it is Tamil Nadu or even Uttar Pradesh, so that whatever is being given to them in the university, they will have to follow. In the ancient education, the government has no interference. Rather, the kings and the royal families contributed towards the development of the education. For the private education of the children, those who had to leave their houses and study for there. So two universities were very famous those days. That is the Takshila, now they are in the northwest Pakistan, and the Nalanda. But these were devastated by the Mohammedans after the Mughal invasion of India. During the study at universities, still the religion was taught, fine arts were taught, medicine, mathematics and astronomy, these were taught. You must have seen that the Aryabhat and the Rohini were discovered those days only. It means the science was in an advanced stage, but the technology which we see today, that is the speed with which the technology is moving, it was not there. Even that is some Chinese ruler, Yuan Zhang, also studied Yoga Shastra there in the universities of Nalanda, and some other universities were there in the Vallabhi, Vikramshila, Ujjain and Banaras. So the point was that everything was expected to be of mutual give and take, that you study it for yourself, it is sponsored by someone, and you are contributing to the society, making the harmony within the society. Now the modern education, you will see that the society in terms of accessing the education, it is not a public good nowadays, it is a private good, that how much you can pay for it, you can earn. Of course, the science and technology advancement has given an opportunity to the people to get the education there in the premier institutions like IIT, IIMs and all that, but it is not a thing for everybody. There is lot of discrimination. Everybody cannot compete for it. Unlike there at that time in ancient education, everyone has a chance to study there in the famous universities, and at least they can learn the skill with the Gurukul, so that their livelihood is not a problem. Here the livelihood is becoming difficult with the education being imparted in the classes, that the students 40 to 50 people will sit in the class and there will be no practical knowledge. Basically it is a theoretical knowledge. In ancient India there were no textbook. In ancient, while the ancient education was there was no textbook at all. Whatever was, it was oral, and you were expected to study on taktis. Some of us must have used it, that writing the arithmetic and alphabets, everything could be done on the taktis. So that was what in fact was the minimum spending, but maintaining the ecological balance. It was important those days. Now today's education is based on exploitation of the matter and energy. Now when you can use excess amount of energy, excess amount of matter, you can earn better livelihood. If it is not, then definitely you will be out. So this is the reason that the literacy, even if we see considered that any person who can sign, although he is not considered to be literate, but still 70% of India is literate, 30% of the people are illiterate. The student of 8th standard cannot perform the numeracy or the arithmetic skill of the 3rd standard. The 5th standard boy cannot study the 2nd standard textbook or whatever are the words written in Hindi. So now we are considered as divided on many fronts, like so far as the lingual character is concerned, so far as the culture is concerned, so far as other things are concerned. We are racing for something which we are also do not know. That what we are trying to achieve, every individual is racing and he is trying to leave behind his other contemporarian and to achieve what the best is. So as a result of which the environment is completely exploited, global warming is taking place. It is because of the harms done to the ecology and the environment. So I think the time is over.
Yes, yes, please. Sorry.
So
yes.
next, when you will give me the chance,
Thank you very much, Professor Arya, for giving your views. And Professor Arya explained about the ancient time and the modern time, the differences and the challenges, paucity of time. So without summarizing what he has said, he already made his points clear. I would like to move to my next panelist guest, and he is Dr. 𝐂𝐀 Manjunath. He is MS, MA, PhD. Dr. Manjunath is the Student Welfare Officer at Sri Madhwa Vardaraj Institute of Technology and Management, Udupi. This excellence is not an act, but a habit. This one line sums up Dr. Manjunath. One moment, please. This one line sums up Dr. Manjunath's career of almost 2 decades. A PhD from MIT Boston, MS from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, author of a maths book by Pearson's publication, and ardent researcher and an academician par excellence. He has dedicated 19 years of his career to achieving academic excellence and establishing a firm foundation for better education. He has completed his graduation in information science and life sciences, masters in English literature, B.Ed on online courses in documentation and information science, and a program on effective leadership in teaching, learning and process training. Across his illustrious career, he has held academic and administrative positions in leading institutions, including Justice 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 Institute of Management, Sahdri College of Engineering, and Management, Sadguru Public School, the Yenopaya School and Yenopaya PU College, Anuman Group of Institution and Vidodhya Public School, successfully hosting a science conclave where Nobel laureates and internationally acclaimed scientists were invited, serving as a guest faculty to young minds and contributing to building the academic talent pool have been the hallmark of his career. Receiving various awards and accolades are a testament of his deep commitment to furthering research and delivering academic excellence. Notable among them are Young Scientist Award in 2003 and 2009 for outstanding work in IT relating to biomedicine, Best Teacher Award by Rotary and JC NGO. While serving as a founder principal of Vidodhya Public School, he served as a national level paper setter for JEE and NEET, Chief Superintendent for 10th and 12th exams and entrance exams like JEE, AIPMT and CTET of CBSE Board, Observer for 10th and 12th exams for National Institute of Open Schooling, Guest Faculty MBA program for Manipal Institute of Management, managed outreach programs, PGID programs and literary World Club at Justice K.S. Hegde Institute of Management. An ardent researcher, he has authored and published articles and monthly periodicals, served as editor for Pearson Publications, Universal Mathematics till grade 8, and Wiley Publication Physics textbook on electrostatics and wave motion for grade 12. Welcome, Dr. C.K. Manjunath on our show. Dr. Manjunath, you have heard already Mr. Rishikesh Sharan, Professor Dr. R.K. Arya and Dr. Sapna Agarwal. Now, we would like to know from you your views on ancient education versus modern education. Dr. C.K. Manjunath, please. Please unmute. Please unmute.
Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity, and it's a great day for me to hear from the three eminents. In fact, I don't have much to say because eminents have already put the views, and I just thought I'll summarize it with my personal experiences in the last 2 decades, how I have felt this. Basically, the traditional education was always teacher-centered. If you take Gurukul system or any Vedic system of learning, it was always teacher-centered. But in the modern times, we have shifted from teacher-centered to the learner-centered. That is the main shift or transformation that we have seen in our educational pattern. Number two, the subjects were very specific. It was knowledge domain-based learning in the ancient part. But today, along with the subjects, a lot of skills are stressed. So it is skill-based knowledge. That is what is being taught to the students. And we ask them to have the experiential learning in it. Then the one way of transfer of knowledge was always experienced in the ancient times. Like we used to use oral communication as the strong mode through which a lot of knowledge was shared and learned. But today, it's a multiple methods. Various methods we have the transformation of knowledge. If you have seen in the last 1.5 years, most of the teachers did not know the Zoom, Google Meet, etc., etc. Now today, most of the teachers have become professional in handling the distance mode of learning and teaching. Fourth is, ancient methods have a lot of passive and limited scope of learn. See, I will be biased if I use some negative terms here, but because the ancient methods of learning was also very successful, but methods of learning, since it was theoretical quite a lot over there, we had a lot of passive and limited mode of learning in the structure. But today, since we have practical based, conceptual based, learning is very systematic. I do definitely agree with Dr. Arya when he was explaining about the various modes in which the transformations have taken place. Even Dr. Sapna was highlighting these points. See, today, most of us, we work towards the conceptual based or practical based learning. That was the reason project based learning was so much appreciated. Though P.C. Mahalanobis gave this concept very early in his methods of learning. In fact, it came into practice over a later periods of time, but it picked it up so well. We started experiencing this from the Westerners. In fact, though this concept got originated in India, but it was practiced well in the West, and again we started using it. So how I differentiate ancient and present mode of teaching was, in the ancient methods, mind training was the beginning process, which was called as manas, the mana mode of preparing your mind towards it. Then aptitude and lost soft skills. This was the beginning of preparations in the ancient modes. Whereas in the present education, this is the adult-based education. We start today with buddhi training, like brain training. That is the beginning part of the present education, which was the adult education in the ancient system. So there is a total shift in the pragmatic development of learning from manas to buddhi. So that is the change that I would like to bring in. And number two, aptitude has been changed to technical data today. See, everybody talks about analytics today. They keep the analysis and then they go with it. Even if a child wants to buy a bicycle or a sandal, they go and check on the data mining system, what is its rating. Based on that, only they wish to go for it. They want to buy a watch, they want to see, they would like to have the rating of it, then they visualize it. So, lot of such variations have come up. And number two, last part is soft skills and hard skills. This is one major thing. See, in the Gurukul method, hard skills were specifically taught to the adults. But today, children are given these experiences. As again, Arya sir and the Sapna ma'am was mentioning about the Montessori methods of learning. If you look at it, see, everything is experiential there. Child is made to perform things and child is made to experience the performances what the child has made. So this is one of the major aspects of learning that I would like to talk about. But overall, what I wish to say here is the education developed from the human struggle for survival and enlightenment. This was the base with which the whole education started. It may be formal or informal. Informal education refers to the general social process by which human beings acquire the knowledge and skills needed to function in their culture. Formal education refers to the process by which teachers instruct students in courses of study within institutions. That I have really experienced when I was studying at Indian Institute of Science. A lot of teaching was given to us through experiences. We were made to understand the concept through practical experiences. See, that is the reason even today, whatever that has been taught to us, we are able to customize it to the scenario that is needed here. So I really believe in what Gandhiji has really bent upon, taking it like basic education policy, the web-based education model, which he had insisted. If this kind of holistic experience is taken into education, whether it is ancient part or to the modern part today, the education becomes culture-oriented. I was very happy to listen from all the three eminent. See, they stressed upon the word of values. In fact, today in our modern education, this is one thing that we are really missing out. In fact, when ma'am said about NEP, it has to be experienced today because we need to bring back the values into our educational structure. Whatever the technology we are speaking about, whatever it is, ultimately the value changes a student to a real human being. Number two, I believe in mindfulness concept, which J. Krishnamurti always used to put in to the concept of education. See, he always said, we have to have clarity of why am I learning? which was very clear when we, if you study ancient modes of learning. See, as Dr. Arya mentioned about, see, Ekalavya had clarity in learning. That was the reason he became Guru independent. Though Guru was a transformational object for him in his lifestyle, but his focus was very clear, so he became an expert of it. Today, in most of our educational structures, we are preparing jacks, and we are not able to make the masters out of them. See, I have been working in an engineering college. I can very clearly say that we are producing graduates, but we are not really producing the skill-based graduates. So that is one of the deficiencies on which we need to work upon. And we have plenty of, like Kothari Commission came in, we took Bloom's taxonomy in our learning pictures. All these things were true, but I still believe the Rabindranath Tagore's one word, like where the mind is without fear. See, the learning is complete only when you have joyfulness in it. See, Tagore always believed in teach any content through music and language, the child will love it and enjoy that. So if you can bring in these aspects into the methods of learning, we always feel the learning becomes very significant. Last word to say, like, why did I go into making of a textbook of maths for the schools? So in fact, to tell you frankly, in 2010, I had a very bad experience when I was heading a school. I used to see teachers giving a lot of homeworks in the classroom of math, and maths used to look like a phobiatic subject. Every child used to complain, the parents used to come and complain me saying, the teachers have made your maths as very hard subject. So I was just going through what is happening over there. So when I studied, like from the ancient system till today, how we have dealt with maths is, see, we have made concepts very complicated over it. So I used a method of bringing it, a simple concept like 2020 cricket match was introduced into the classroom using mathematics. So 2020 was a very punchline for these young children. And I brought in those concepts into maths, and we took maths into the classroom using 2020 cricket match. In fact, it became very joyful. So some of this kind of methods, if it can be brought in, which are real extracts of Gurukul system, where character was the basic entity in learning, value was the base for everything. If we can bring in, we can definitely prove back saying what Charaka and Shruta used to do through their ancient time. Today, even our surgeons can do it by using the same modes in a better manner. So I would like to thank all the experts for giving me an opportunity to listen to them. And I would like to thank you, sir, for giving me an opportunity to be part of this program. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 Manjunath, for giving your views. Now, I would like to, instead of wasting the time, I would like to go direct. Can you hear me, Dr. Manjunath? Yeah. So now I would like, okay, now I would like to ask the question. My first question goes to Mr. Saran. Mr. Saran, are you there? Yes. Mr. Saran, are you there? Please switch on your video, please. Mr. Saran, we can't see you. Yes, yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. So, Mr. Saran, ancient time, we have seen the ethics and the morals, which are lacking nowadays. One reason, can you suggest why and what are your suggestions how we can bring the ethics and morals in the present modern education, which is lacking, which were there in ancient time? What do you say about this, Mr. Sharan?
Sir, I have already told you. Sir, I have already told you the whole emphasis is right now on getting the degree. Otherwise, please tell me, how come a person who stands fourth in the All India IIT exam clears from Delhi?
Dr. Mr. Sharan, yes, you have made it. I'm asking you, what are the correction now? What has to be done so that this type of things should not happen in what is happening now?
We have at ground level, say for example, I told you, the system of mentor which they have brought out in Delhi. We should start a campaign and try to find out the old man bank, how many hours of time they are available. Then we have to also find out how, by contacting the children, the principals in the schools, Madam Sapna Agarwal in this line. Let us find out who are the suppliers and who are the people with demand. That's one point, as I said. Then second thing, that teachers are to be told clearly what is as per the law. If the teacher punishes a student, he or she is to be penalized. So they are not doing it. They have, I mean, one of the teachers in Calcutta, because he asked some student not to cheat in the exam, he was thrown out of the train. Now, teachers are to be told, students are also be told that what is the Lakshman Rekha? Actually, we are not talking at all about discipline.
Okay. So according to you, the discipline is lacking, and
discipline is also important. All these are important. All these are important.
Okay.
It's not that only discipline is important.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharan. Now I would like to ask Professor Arya. Professor Arya, what you suggest, or what is the innovation should come out, where the ancient education and the modern education hybrid system, because there are so many qualities we have in your discussion. You mentioned about the things which were better in the ancient education, and there are many things which are better in modern education. So what type of hybrid system should be there, or according to you, what should be done to improvise the modern education, taking the good qualities of ancient education? Professor Arya.
Understanding the culture, first of all, is very important. That what for we are here on the earth is very important. We are ultimately human beings. Our purpose is self-realization, and we will go to hell if we will do bad deeds, and if we will do good deeds, we will go to the heaven. One Paramatma has to be understood, that is called Brahma. If it is not, then whatever the people are understanding about Rama or Krishna or Muhammad or Quran and this Bible, that all these, they have got good value system with them. So they continue with them and they should not interfere. Okay. The biggest drawback in the education system is that the division of education imparted by the private system and the government. The government has given off its responsibility that it will not take care of the education at higher level or even at the primary level. So long the division will be there, the selfishness will be there. The parents will like to choose that tutor where they can afford for it, but most of them cannot afford it. Okay. So what the government should do is that entire education will remain in the hands of the government, or it should regulate accordingly that what the nation expects the private system to do, whether the Gita should be there or whether the Quran should be taught or the Bible should be taught. One uniformity should be there.
I have to stop you because of the time. Thank you very much. Now my question goes to Dr. Sapna Agarwal. You were mentioning about the National Education Policy 2020. There was a mentioned very clearly on July 30th, when the policy was released, that the 6% budget will be granted for the GDP of for the NEP, and we have seen in the last 2 years it was only 3.1, and the excuse is of COVID, which is totally wrong, because the COVID was before it was released. So if this is the intent of the government not releasing the funds which are required, how do you think that 2030 or 2050 is going to be achieved? I don't think, because 50 schools to be opened every day as per the NEP, nowhere it is seen. So still you are hopeful that the NEP will change the modern education system?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Goel, and thank you once again for this esteemed panel. I could hear them. Now, this question, the moment it comes for NEP, yes, of course, the funds should have been released. But what I understand is, I mean, I still advocate the National Policy of Education, and I have a lot of high hopes of its being getting implemented. As far as what you mentioned, 50 schools to be opened per day or not, I yet have to understand, was it exactly this figure? The talk is about that the existing schools and existing infrastructures, number one, to be made inclusive by 2025, which is the work has begun. Number two, the experiential learning to start getting implemented in the teachers learning lesson plans with minimum learning outcomes, which has begun. The foundational literacy and numeracy to start getting implemented, which has begun. Right. So there are a variety of things which have already begun. As far as the funds are there, I do not think so. Our nation has ever failed in providing the right funds at right point of time. So, if the funding comes and nothing starts happening, then there'll be a question that the funds were given and they were not executed properly.
Okay.
So whatever has come to us, let us start working into it. The more important thing is that the teacher educators, they have to update and upskill themselves. That is what National Policy of Education is mentioning.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand the time.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Agrawal. Now, my last question goes to Dr. Manjunath. As Dr. Agrawal says, NEP says that educators to be educated. Do you think the mindset of the teachers or the educators in India are ready to accept to go for the refresher course, to be educated by young people, which is a very, very challenging task? Dr. Manjunath, 30 seconds only.
Sir, if they are not going to do it, they will be out of this train. They in this train and they have to catch something else. If they have to be part of this educational system and the revolution that is happening, they have to update, they have to go with it. See, this has become something like Darwin's theory, survival of the existing.
Okay.
So you need to survive as a teacher, you need to have those practices and you have to
we have to see things. Thank you, Dr. Manjunath, but we have to see, after all, we have so much unemployment, and if we will be going to unemploy those senior teachers who are not fit, what is going to happen? We have to see the social condition of the country also. Thank you very much. So viewers, you have seen today, the experts have given their opinion. They have mentioned about the ancient education, the plus points as well as the minus points with the current situation, because after all, the modern education is different, somewhat different than the ancient education. But the crux is the lacking the moral and ethical value, which is very important. And for that, we need not to see the government, we need not to see the schools or colleges. It's the responsibility of the civil society, myself and you, all of you. If we will not change the attitude at our own family members with the children, if we will say to them that go to the school, if any teacher say anything, we are ready to fight and we are going to abuse the teacher, this is a wrong mindset. We have to change our mindset. After all, we have to give the respect to the teachers. They are the nation builders, no one else, neither the political leader nor anyone else. The teachers are the nation builders. We have to understand this. If we will understand this, then definitely there will be no difference between the ancient education and the modern education. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Caru News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, as well as shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor to bring to you everyday new topic in media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. And tomorrow is a very, very special day for media conference with Lal Goel, because tomorrow we are celebrating the second anniversary. Yes, we have started this program uninterrupted on the 22nd March when the Janta curfew was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. First day, and from that day we are doing it every day, this program of media conference with Lal Goel. And tomorrow our topic is responsible use of media, and our panelists are Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, one-man expert, Commission on Labour, Government of India; Dr. Mukesh Sharma, former Director General, Films Division of India, former Additional Director General, Doordarshan, Ministry of I&B, Government of India; Professor Dr. Sudhir Sharan, former visiting professor, IIM Lucknow and University of Texas at Dallas; founder Dr. Sharan Consulting, California, USA; Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak, international corporate trainer, public speaker, blogger and columnist, former professor and head of management studies, IIT Dhanbad. So please tune in tomorrow to celebrate media conference with Lal Goel's second anniversary at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Mr. Hari Rishikesh Saran. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. R.K. Arya. Thank you very much, Dr. Sapna Agrawal. And thank you very much, Dr. C.K. Manjunath, for giving your views. And thank you all the viewers for getting such enlightening views from all the experts of our panelists. And I'm sure today's program is very enlightening. So thank you all the viewers for watching our show. Thank you very much.